She was the worst shot in the unit, a soldier everyone had written off. But when a SEAL commander whispered 2 words in her ear, the entire range froze, because what happened next looked less like training and more like war. The sun baked down on the dusty training range, the air heavy with the smell of gunpowder and sweat. Staff Sergeant Mara Keene stood in formation, her rifle clutched tighter than it should be, her knuckles white. She could feel the stares of the other trainees, some pitying, most dismissive. She had 2 days left before she was officially dropped from the program. Her evaluation file was a graveyard of red marks. Slow breach times, sloppy reloads, hesitation in live-fire drills. Worst of all, she'd frozen twice, in doorways where hesitation could have meant death. The instructors didn't hide their frustration anymore. Whispers followed her everywhere. She's past her prime. She's broken. The buzzer sounded for her turn. Mara adjusted her grip on the rifle, trying to drown out the noise in her head as the evaluation began. The first target popped up and she fired, too slow. The second appeared, and she fumbled the reload, the magazine clattering to the dirt. Somewhere behind her, someone exhaled in disappointment. She pushed on, forcing herself through the motions, until the sudden growl of an engine cut through the air. A black SUV rolled onto the range, kicking up a swirl of dust. It stopped beside the command tower, and from it stepped a tall figure in desert fatigues. His cap pulled low, mirrored sunglasses hiding his eyes. The instructors straightened immediately, and a low murmur rippled through the trainees. "SEAL Commander!" He walked with the kind of calm authority that didn't need an introduction, scanning the field until his gaze landed on Mara. She froze not from fear, but from recognition. She knew that face. Years ago, in another life, they'd shared a battlefield neither had ever spoken about since. He gave a barely perceptible nod before speaking to the lead instructor. Whatever he said made the man stiffen and gesture toward Mara. The commander stepped closer, his voice low but sharp as a blade. "Ghost knife," he said. 2 words. No explanation. No encouragement. Just the order. Mara's breath caught. The world seemed to sharpen. Colors brighter. Sounds crisper. Her hands stopped trembling. Somewhere deep inside, the muscle memory she thought she'd lost stirred awake. Without waiting for permission, she reset her stance and signaled she was ready to continue. The whistle blew, and Mara moved before the echo faded. She slipped through the doorway like water, her rifle rising with surgical precision. The first target dropped with a single controlled burst. No hesitation, no wasted motion, only clean, lethal efficiency. The trainees watching from the sidelines went silent, eyes tracking her as she flowed from cover to cover, clearing rooms in seconds. She didn't freeze in doorways anymore. She owned them. At the reload station, her hands worked without thought, magazine swapping in a blur before the next shot cracked out. Every turn, every pivot was sharper, faster, more deliberate than anything they'd seen from her before. The instructors exchanged stunned glances, but the SEAL commander just watched, arms folded, his expression unreadable. Mara's mind wasn't on them. She was back in that dusty village years ago, moving under fire, executing the very tactics the commander had drilled into her during a mission no one dared to put on paper. She could almost hear his voice from that day, short, clipped, impossible to ignore, guiding her steps. She stacked up on the final doorway, slipped inside, and dropped the last 2 targets before they even finished rising. The buzzer blared, signaling the end. Mara lowered her rifle, breathing steady, eyes scanning for threats that weren't there. It had taken her less than half the allotted time. The crowd erupted in whispers, a mix of disbelief and awe. Just minutes ago, they'd written her off. Now they were watching something else entirely. A soldier transformed, a predator awakened. She caught the commander's gaze. For a heartbeat, he gave the faintest nod, then turned away without a word. The range was so quiet Mara could hear the distant hum of the ventilation fans. Every pair of eyes followed her as she stepped off the course, rifle slung over her shoulder, boots crunching on the gravel floor. Some of the trainees avoided her gaze, ashamed they'd ever doubted her. Others stared openly, a mixture of awe and something sharper, fear. One instructor finally broke the silence. "What the hell was that, Keene?" His voice was half challenge, half disbelief. Mara didn't answer. She didn't need to. The SEAL commander's boots clicked against the concrete as he walked toward her, stopping just close enough that only she could hear him. "Ghost knife," he said softly, the two words like a key turning in a lock. Mara felt her pulse steady even more. The code name wasn't just a memory, it was a promise. Before she could speak, one of the trainees, Olsen the fastest, Olsen charged forward, his mock rifle raised, trying to catch Mara off guard in a final attempt to prove himself. The other trainees instinctively stepped back, knowing this was no longer part of the exercise. It was a challenge. Mara didn't flinch. Her eyes locked on his movements, reading every twitch of his shoulders, every shift in his weight. When he lunged, she moved like water, sidestepping with fluid precision. Her weapon came up, 3 controlled bursts hitting center mass on his vest before he even completed his turn. Olsen froze, the training sensors on his gear beeping in surrender. The entire range fell into stunned silence again. But this time, the air was thick with respect. The SEAL commander stepped forward, his voice carrying over the range. "This," he said, gesturing toward Mara, "is what happens when skill meets purpose. You don't judge a soldier by her worst day, you watch what she does when it matters." Mara finally spoke, her voice low but steady. "Ghost knife isn't just me. It's anyone who refuses to quit when the world writes them off." A few heads nodded, then more, until even Olsen gave a small, grudging salute. The commander returned the gesture toward Mara. "Welcome back, Staff Sergeant Keene. We've got work for you." And with that, the program's worst performer walked off the range not as a failure, but as the quiet weapon no one saw coming, until it was far too late. If this story inspired you, make sure to like, comment, and share it with others who love tales of true grit. Subscribe to Unheard Heroes for more powerful stories that deserve to be remembered.